Without any further ado, I hand over TBWA Hunter Scaris. So let me introduce them both, starting with Peter, who is the CCO of TBWA Hunter Scaris, Peter Khoury, and Executive Committee member of the Creative Circle, the Luries Board, and the Facebook Creative Council for the EMEA region. If I had to list all of his achievements today, I have to take up his entire speaking slot. So Peter, please forgive my attempt to summarize your bio, but here goes. Peter played a pivotal role in many significant initiatives, including launching the BMW 6 Series global campaign, repositioning Sasol, starting Metropolitan Republic, guiding his team to Agency of the Year 3 times. Along the way, accumulating over 300 local and international prestigious awards. You must have one hell of a bookshelf, Peter, as well as sitting on many global awards juries. In his spare time, he also garnered multiple recognitions for his personal contributions, formulated his own clothing and lifestyle brand, and dabbled in the movie business. He's joined by Kabelo Moshapalo, the Executive Creative Director of TBWA Hunter Scaris, and he is a self-taught illustrator that traded his acrylic paints and paintbrushes for the digital canvas. In over 19 years of digital interactive experience, he's worked with global mega brands like McDonald's, Toyota, Nissan, Samsung, and many more. Born and raised in Soweto, Kabelo is responsible for driving creative excellence in digital interactive solutions and digital transformation. He's been featured in leading media titles, a jury member of numerous international award shows, and has received multiple awards at the same time for the work that he has done. To both of you, we are so grateful to have you join us as creative leaders of one of South Africa's top 6 creative digital agencies. I will stop waffling now. Peter and Kabelo, over to you.
Cool, thanks very much, Rob. We are TBWA. This is like we introduced, myself and Kabza. We were named as the Agency of the Year at the Bookmarks this year. This is because we had a lot of different work for a lot of different clients being awarded in a range of categories. So this was not always the case for us. This has been a journey that has taken us a number of years to get here. And by a lot of that work that you can see there, like, it's diverse. There were, I think, about 7 or 8 different campaigns that we did that got awarded in a lot of different categories, very diverse categories. And that takes a culture and a system and processes in place to actually create work at that scale for that amount of clients. So to understand this journey, I need to take you back to 2015. Hunter Scaris, Dan, which was then called Digital Arts Network, and Integer, which is shopper marketing, merged under Hunter Scaris. So you got to understand the time. There was 3 different companies, 3 different processes, 3 different specialities, and 3 different opinions on what great looks like, all smashed together. So quite a crazy situation to be in, and still focus on doing amazing work. So we looked to find the soul of our brand that we wanted to be. That means interrogating ourselves and stripping away everything until our truth confesses itself to us. So, you know, we focus a lot of our attention around what was that we are the disruption company. And disruption is a word used often in this day and age. We, however, have been the disruption company for the last 30 years. That's why we have a registered trademark over there. From when we invented the methodology in 1990 and then refined it into what it is today. So we believe that in the 21st century, a brand's place in culture is its most powerful competitive advantage and source of growth. We agreed that the disruption company has no choice but to believe that our place in culture is our most precious asset as a brand and as a business. So define the right one and you're set. Lose it and you toast. The brands we love, the brands we desire, they all know how to resonate with culture. And we as humans relate to them culturally. So we knew that our role in this would be to become the cultural engine for 21st century business. Nice words, very nice words and provocative. But what does it really mean in terms of running a creative business? It means letting the world in live. So insights and opportunities can present themselves at any moment. It means consistently disrespecting the boundaries of our business and doing whatever it takes to make the projects we believe in happen. It means launching speedboats. So it's organizing for agility. And this means adopting a speedboat mentality, launching them and letting them go wherever they need to go to fulfill their mission. Another way of saying this is that we need to create guerrilla cells that and empower them to do whatever it takes to get done. Embracing the power of and. So we needed to open up wherever we could to inject fresh people, partners, approaches, and attitudes to solve problems. You know, we didn't just want to solve advertising problems, we wanted to solve business problems as well. So it really increases your scope in what you're trying to do, and the people that you need to have as partners and on board to actually make that happen. Because our competition is everything in culture. The reality is that we are not competing with other comms or creative shops. We are competing with the world. The kid in the back room going viral, the latest track or series, anything that's pulling eyeballs towards themselves by putting themselves out there. But culture is also the opportunity. The more we play in culture, the more we understand how it works and what triggers to pull so we can resonate. And the more we resonate, the more we kill off the things that are mediocre, uninteresting, and boring. So our processes and behavior needs to be as agile, fluid, and responsive as the culture we play in. And these were a lot of insights and a lot of things that we pulled together during that time to make sure that we are building something and a shop that is fit for the future. If you just look at this clip, I don't have many clips here, but I have a few that this is one of the very important ones because technology has sped up everything, even the fastest sport on the planet. Have a look at a pit stop change in 1981 compared to 2019. You're not going to hear any sound, but I mean, that's pretty crazy, you know, pretty damn crazy. From what, 3 or 4 seconds to almost 20 seconds. That's the amount of time that they've cut down. And then you can just imagine that happening on every aspect of life that we have in every possible way. So it really is a race to innovate. We used to reach 1 million people with one big idea. Today, we have 1 million ideas that can reach millions of people in an instant. So speed may be the defining attribute of modern business. Top performers translate insights into action, new product launches, or new marketing campaigns more quickly than comparable firms. But shit at the speed of light is still shit. So be aware. In this age of unprecedented data, the ability to reach millions in an instant, creativity is more important than ever. The more impersonal things become, the more personal we need to be. There's a difference between reaching someone and emotionally connecting with them. Creativity is the only way to do this. And then on top of that, like, TV is not dead at all, especially in our country. It's going to be a massive media channel for us for many years to come. But it is having babies, lots and lots of babies. And the more connected we become as a society, you know, smartphones, data, the price of data coming down, the more access we have. The more access we have, the more we can inform ourselves, the more we can educate ourselves, the more we can entertain ourselves. So all these new platforms that our audiences are on, we need to find new ways to engage and drive participation. And then if that isn't enough of a challenge, there's all this innovation, these world tensions, these future trends bearing down at us at breakneck speed, forcing us to evolve constantly, okay? And we live in the attention economy right now. So that means we only have 2.7 seconds to grab someone's attention. Our challenge is to cut through all of this cultural noise and get noticed. That means we have to make the shift from buying people's attention to earning their attention. The true scarce commodity of the near future will be human attention. So that leaves us, you know, to all the things that I've just shown you right there, all those insights and observations, focused our energies around shape-shifting our organization, our processes, our people, even the clients that we had, you know, at the time. Were they culturally right for us? And did they have their eye on where the 21st century is going? And if they didn't, were they the right client for us? Because you can only make what you can sell. And if our values are different, you're never really going to sell it. So finding new forms of showing up, being experimental and fresh, bust boundaries to find new directions, innovate the way we do things, grow our business in new directions. A lot of these sentiments, guys, come out from categories like can in the titanium category. That doesn't define what something is. It's just something that had a massive impact on culture and society in a very powerful way that you can't reference. So a lot of the industry at the moment plays in a narrow space with work. You know, I think a lot of the stuff that you see out there is very worthy. It's very cause related. And we need to broaden that range and find new spaces and shapes to show up in. So when the industry zigs, we're already zagging in somewhere else. We have tried to have fun because we're allowed to have fun. You know, we were less afraid of failure, and we were learning from experimenting and trying things, and we still do that today. What I want to show you next is just a couple of tools and processes that we put in place to actually help us. And Kabza, I'm going to hand over to you so you can go through this section.
So for us to really shapeshift, I think over the years, what we've tried to do is obviously create business processes and creative processes that allows for this. So namely, we have a global network of culture spotters, DLive, which I'll take you a little bit into, and then Edges and Backslash. So all these things help us to react responsibly in culture in real time every day. So all right, so yeah, from Culture Spotter Network, what we have is different sort of specialists that look at different sort of culture triggers throughout the globe, from different categories, automotive, depending on what brands we have, and outside category brands are, you know, doing amazing things globally. And as you can see, it's widespread. It's different industries and sectors, and you know, including our African offices. So that then leads us to Backslash, and Backslash essentially is for us to translate the cultural blur into business opportunities for our clients. What that means is essentially what we want to do is we create insightful sort of content that is entertaining and also you know, relevant for our brands and accounts that we have to basically present opportunities looking at the future of this. And what also happens with Backslash is that, you know, you can actually have different topics every single day, from industry trends to you know, what's happening on the internet. And what we also have is an African chapter of it. So we have specific sort of African insights, African yeah, leading trends that we also tracking and spotting and packaging that. And you can actually visit Backslash online on Instagram and just go through the feed, and you'll see how all the content is packaged to provide insight and also you know, map where trends are going, where things and forecast what the future sort of looks like. What happens as well with some of these trends and triggers, you know, they actually take form and become commonplace. So that leads us to edges, and we actually map edges. You can see there's about 56 in total edges that we've already mapped, and they range from lifestyle to sports to economy to technology, and all these things are little pivots that change or shape culture going into the future. So what we do is, you know, we map our triggers against that, again, finding opportunities for our brands. In terms of a business process, what we've done is we've developed a Disruption Live. So this is for us to be able to respond in real time. And it's a bespoke system that identifies triggers that are meaningful to our clients' brands. And then what we do is we interpret these and find the best course of action to locate our brands in culture and to be responsive and relevant. You can see that actually triggers can come from anywhere. So from competitors, technology, influencers. And I think the best way to demonstrate this is in the next slide, where one of the case studies that you can find on YouTube, which is Breaking Ballet, is essentially creating, it's essentially taking breaking news and interpreting them into bite-sized ballet showcases. So from real-time triggers like, you know, there was the water crisis in Cape Town, to calendar events, for example, the Mayweather and McGregor fight, where we actually developed two different outcomes of the actual boxing bout itself, so that depending on whoever won, we actually had on hand 2 different films that we can showcase. And essentially that's basically all what the triggers inform. They basically are the conversations that are worth having by the whole globe, and they're happening right now. So leading to our next sort of quick case study. I mean, you guys can go onto YouTube and look at all these different pieces of work, if I'm not doing them too much justice because of the short amount of time to go through them. You know, there was this big World Cup, and one of our telcos, MTN, is a sponsor of MTN, of the Bokke. But who's this guy? So this guy essentially was the official buzzer, a person that we actually used to actually create content on scale in real time. So he had his own separate sort of platforms that he actually was creating content live, behind the scenes, in the locker rooms, at the matches, all the time, every time, and basically our eyes and ears into the game of rugby, all happening at scale. I mean, lots of content on all the various platforms, all at the same time.
We did this for about 1.5 years, and we built a following from no one to over 150,000 really die-hard Springbok fans. So it was very authentic. It was behind the scenes. You got to see and know players and learn about them in ways that were a lot deeper than the superficial stuff that sponsorships normally do.
I mean, obviously, you know, taking all these ways of approaching content creation and everything else, you know, from the 20 to 30 pieces every day on all the different platforms that Pete just mentioned, you know, how does that translate into our actual brand presence? So for the monolithic brand MTN, which is the next slide, you know, we had to actually take some of these key learnings and, you know, how do we apply them to retail messaging? How do we apply them to social customer service? How do we apply them to Outlook and reputation online? So the next slide is a graph of once we started doing this and applying these this methodology as well as the process. There's definitely that spike, and our aim every day is to try to sustain that kind of engagement, as well as build a lot of business intel for the brand itself with regards to the audience behavior. So this is actually like a whole new way of us working, and starts with the D-Lab triggers that we do daily. You know, it goes into weekly editorial team meetings where we look at culture, we look at brands, and then, you know, depending on where the triggers lead us, there's the content format development and then deployment or publishing. But we're always looking, always monitoring and looking at what the behavior patterns that emerge and how the audience is receiving the content that we're putting out there.
Our vision of being the cultural engine for 21st century business, along with all the tools that Cabs has just spoken to you about, led us to form the narrative around the things that exist in the now and the things that will exist in the next. And in a lot of ways, these dynamic times we live in can be quite overwhelming, but for the creatively strong, it is a really exciting moment. We've got to live in the now and the next. So in a marketplace that changes at warp speed, the challenge is to embrace the now daily. In fact, minute to minute, as it's happening, while remaining alert to the fact that the next is already happening, materializing before you can catch your breath, just about simultaneously. And that's the tension that we live in right now. You know, if we're not future-proofing ourselves and have one eye on the next, we will be relegated. But if we focus on the now, the stuff that our clients pay us for, as well as the next, simultaneously, that's a great way to make your organization future fit. And this means pushing ourselves hard into uncomfortable places that force us to do other things and challenge the convention of what our industry does and how we can serve better. Because we don't have a place if we cannot serve. Everything between the brand and the audience is media. And we are moving away from a world of ads and into a world of branded everything. In this world, the brand knows its place in culture and creates compelling, relevant work that can take any shape or form and leverage any media channel in diverse ways. Apple's spot for HomePod, titled Welcome Home and directed by Spike Jones, is a great example of this. Was it an ad? Was it a music video? Was it a short film? It is probably a mesh of everything. It was a piece of content that busted out the category. And then look at this guy, okay? He's doing more amazing stuff than some of the best companies in the world. And he doesn't have any legacy issues. So think about what the potential and the power of what he's doing can be in time to come, and look at it even as it's the impact that he's having already in the stuff that he does. Another great example is Will Smith. You know, he does social media production on another level. Instagram even decided to honor Smith with his Fresh Prince inspired filter, not only because of his position in the entertainment industry as an A-list actor, but also because he is an equally bona fide star on social media. So we knew that we needed to be surrounded by people who give us and our clients what we don't know we need if we wanted to have a bigger share of the future. You know, you got to start planning and doing things right now that your clients aren't even asking for. And if you do that, you can lead them. Otherwise, you're a victim. You sit there and you get told what to do. And that is a slow road to nowhere and to probably death for your company if you do it that way. Because we must create change before it relegates us. And Cabs, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about this. This is just our maker workshop that we also have inside the agency that does a lot of weird and wonderful stuff for us.
Yes, I think just quickly, I think with regards to the maker workshop, I mean, this is our creative technologist and innovation team. And some of the examples that are on screen right now range from robotics to 3D printing, which involves rapid prototyping, as well as artificial intelligence. So, you know, great to have these guys on board, which essentially is not like a typical sort of service offering that a agency would have, but more creative company would have.
So this is some of the work that we have been doing of late. Some of the work you would know, and some is still work in progress and will be launching soon. But all this work is distinctive. We experimented, we made mistakes, we learned from them with our clients at the same time. We changed things along the way, we optimized them, making it simpler as we went. If you look at Breaking Ballet, you know, what we showed you earlier, initially that was called Bite-Size Ballet. And we changed it to Breaking Ballet and changed the aesthetics and a lot of the stuff after we shot the third film. Did anyone complain? Did anyone say anything? No. We just went, we re-edited things, we re-uploaded them, and we just kept on doing what we did. No one cared. They just kept enjoying the stuff as it came. But we were fine-tuning and making it more amazing as we went, perfecting it iteratively, like software companies do. And, you know, if we had never done everything that, like Cabs had said so far, or the attitude that I was talking about, we would never have been able to deliver on the work that we are currently doing for the Solidarity Fund. They approached us 3 days before lockdown with a brief to launch a brand that didn't exist, that represented government, business, and citizens of South Africa by collecting donations and using them to help the fight against COVID-19. So our communication task was very simple: to supply the confirmation of solidarity in action. And we have a campaign which is, you know, the confirmation of solidarity is acknowledging and saying that what someone's just done, that's solidarity. That's an example that you can take from, that you can use. But if I show you the timeline here, we basically had a discussion on the 21st of March, and on the 6th of April, we handed over a CR toolkit, a complete website that you can donate money on, TV ads, social media accounts were set up with posts and templates already done up, radio ads, stickers, print ads, outdoor. And you might go, why are you doing outdoor? Well, we're doing outdoor specifically for the people in essential services that are still out and about on the streets. So if I give you a look at what this campaign shape kind of looks like, it is completely format driven. So, you know, we couldn't shoot, we couldn't go out there. So we made use of that. We created templates. We used the same templates, but slightly tweaked on social that we used on TV. You can see a lot of the activity happening over here. And, you know, this, again, guys, this was in 17 days from nothing until here. And we know how agile everyone else is right now. Every agency, every client out there is trying to get their stuff out as soon as possible. What we had to do is get this out there before all of them had spent all of their money so they could see this and then jump on to the Solidarity Fund or make it part of the work that they were doing because it's for the greater cause, you know. So Yeah, very, very, if we hadn't learned and we weren't fit on the methodology and the approach that we had been speaking about, we would never have been able to pull this off to the degree where everything that we're talking about is just in our memory structures, you know, so we behave this way organically, even though this was a massive challenge.
Yeah, I think the whole journey that we've been through and where we actually have come to at the point is, you know, a lot of the stuff that you see with the Solidarity Fund is informed by culture. So it's culture in, campaign out, because a lot of it has to happen utilizing user-generated content, influencer engagement, and as much as a whole integrated campaign, it's digitally led, you know, so a lot of things are informed by what's happening, and the fluidity of it, you know, is us boxing on the front foot, you know, because, you know, the agility and being able to respond in real time as you know, there's uncertain times that we're going into. We are living in a new timestamp. There was before Corona, BC, and after digitization, which is AD. And what that presents is a whole set of different behaviors that we have to tap into in terms of getting our comms out there or getting the right responses and interaction with our audience.
Thanks, Cabs. I mean, in summary, like, you can't talk yourself out of something that you behaved yourself into. And in a lot of ways, it's very true for us. You know, we've become something else, something that is very different, that takes on a very different shape to where we were in 2015. And, you know, doing what we did meant that we had to be brave and trust in ourselves to deliver on expectations. You know, this is one of the most exciting times to be brave. So, like, in summary, you know, we needed to challenge ourselves to move out of our comfort zones and shapeshift. We have to embrace the power of and, interrogate the product until it confesses its soul, move at the speed of culture, understand our audience, tell the truth, inspire change, have the right timing, it is everything, and be brave, you know, in the actions and the messages that we take. So thank you. I think we just came in on time.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Messages here. That was incredible.
Sweet.
Love the creative process. This is world class. You are mad. So guys, I've got a bunch of questions for you. So the first one, I quite like this one because it's just very practical. What type of literature and media do you consume to keep yourselves up to date in this ever-changing world?
Everything.
Yeah.
You can't focus yourself on one thing. Obviously, I have passion points. I love hip hop. I love street culture. I love graffiti. I love all of that stuff. I've loved it my whole life. But I really know that culture very deeply. So people will use me in the agency when it comes to that. Even though I'm in my 40s now, I still have a love for street culture more than anything. But there's other people in the agency that love other things. But collectively, we learn from each other and we make sure that we expose ourselves to everything, especially the things that we don't care about, because that's where you can add amazing objective opinion to that you don't have emotions towards, you know, because you look at it as an outsider.
Yeah, I think Pete nailed it. I think we open to everything, and you know, boxing yourself in you know, limits you. So we don't want those shortcomings, and we create the culture of this openness. It's the open, radically open creative collective.
Okay, cool. So let me ask you a follow-up question of my own. For me, the ability to be creative really is about, well, not just, but is fundamentally built on a culture of curiosity. In my opinion, there's no new ideas for the most part. It's about pulling existing ideas together in new ways, and therefore, almost by definition, the more existing ideas you have in your head, the better, and therefore curiosity. And so my question to you guys is, well, I'm assuming you would agree with that, but assuming you do, how do you filter for curiosity when hiring people? Because I have learned that it's very hard, if not impossible, to retrofit a culture of curiosity into a person's head. You know, with myself, I've been asking questions since the day I can remember, whether it's some person standing on the side of the road. I mean, I used to drive my parents crazy. I just have questions in my head about everything all the time. Not always a good thing, but it's about being curious. And just some people are not like that. It doesn't make them better or worse. But I don't think you can teach that. I don't think you can force it. How do you filter for that at the hiring stage?
Well, it firstly begins in, you know, getting a background on someone, or obviously if you do know of them, you can form an opinion on them. But a lot of the time in our interviews, like they're not the normal questions we ask. Like I'll ask what music you like, and I'll ask things that more get into the culture of you as a person, so I can find that stuff out to see how much you tap into and how much you know about other stuff. It's so important that you employ people that are self-motivated, because if they're self-motivated, they organically have that need to be inquisitive, to find out things, to push themselves further. So much of it is the attitude, that it comes to. And then the last thing is bringing people into your organization that don't belong in an ad agency. Like we've got a guy there that works in the maker workshop. He has his master's degree. He's studying for his doctorate in unmanned reconnaissance vehicles. So basically flying drones. It's a crazy asset and a crazy person to have in an agency. And I'll be honest with you, we didn't make money off that person and that division for a long time. And it's only just started to shift now, and it wasn't invested in that because we employ curious minds that have different shapes. It eventually adds up, and that's a risk that you have to take, as companies in this day and age.
Okay, thanks, Peter. My next question comes from our very own Di Charlton, who runs Red and Yellow's Mac program. Di says, you guys have always been known for innovation and doing things differently. How do you maintain that? How do you stop yourselves from settling into a comfortable space? And then the follow-on question, what's next? What does the next iteration of your agency look like?
What keeps us fresh is like the passion for ideas. Ideas are our currency, right? So it always starts there. And everyone is equal in front of the idea. So technology is driven by the idea. So some of the people that Pete mentioned, which are technologists and engineers, they all buy into that culture of its ideas. So that keeps it kind of fresh and dynamic in terms of that. And I think what we always look at in terms of the forecast, which Pete kind of touched on, is the now and the next. So what's now is like immediate and real time. And the next is like a forecast within 3 years. So we're always looking at some of the emerging tech, for example, or emerging sort of behavioral things like, there's things like there's these influencers that are actually, bots or like the artificial influence, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's where the shape of things is going with regards to that trend. And we kind of follow it closely. But I think also another thing is we as much as we try to be, as much as we are rooted in locally relevant, we want to be globally competitive. So we tap into our network quite a lot, just to essentially make sure that, in terms of keeping up and also being on the pulse of what's happening, it's actually always globally competitive.
My next question is from Tristan Perry. And Tristan, I'm sure you are a lead. I'm going to summarize this question really, guys, to the impact of AI on digital marketing. Is it going to hurt the industry? Is it going to help the industry? And if you see the outcome as negative, how do we adapt before it's too late?
It's, everything is balanced, Rob. There's benefits and there's drawbacks in everything that is presented to us as human beings, if I could say. It's up to us how the lens that we choose to put on it. Is it pessimistic or is it opportunistic? And, so much of what we do is, if you look at AI and you look at the power of it, of course it can be used negatively, but of course it can be used positively. You just have to make sure that the lens that you have, or you're conscious of the fact of how people might take advantage of it. But it is going to impact our lives. It is going to change, and it's going to evolve and keep getting better. There's no going back. That's what I think a lot of people need to understand, that the way things were, even the world as we know it 3 weeks ago, is never going to go back to the world that it was. You got to embrace the stuff and you got to leverage it and make it meaningful to you, and meaningful. You got to create meaningful work out of using it.
100%, couldn't agree more. I mean, I, for one, welcome our robot overlords. Our next question is from Abongile. Peter, you mentioned that in one of your recent accolades was acquired through collaborating with different agencies that focus on different approaches and channels of marketing and advertising. How do you as TBWA ensure that the end deliverables are consistent to TBWA's way of doing things and not overweighed by the collaboration with these different stakeholder agencies? So I think if you could just speak to collaboration as a whole, certainly from my experience with agencies, collaboration is quite a polarizing thing. It either works beautifully or it's an absolute unmitigated disaster. What techniques have you guys used to get the best out of collabs?
So you are right. So collaboration, I could almost say that every time you take an idea and you hand it over to another supplier to implement in their channels, you probably lose about 30% of the integrity of that idea. You don't if you bring the people into your agency so they understand it. You have to over-explain. Sometimes, we're very dismissive and we briefed someone and they briefed. But bringing them in, explaining to them, letting them go through the strategy, let them go through the whole journey that you've gone on and the decisions that you've made in a process to get to a point. Then they have context. Then the chance of that idea being splintered, like there's far less chance of that happening. Collaboration really is about human beings and how you connect with one another. So if you have two personalities that clash, like best you change that. Don't let it keep going on. You got to make recommendations and you got to rather talk to the companies and the people that you're dealing with and say, look, this person isn't working over here. They're just not in the flow. You got to get people who have the same values into a room to speak about. Because if you have the same values and the same vision for something, then the chances of that falling apart or being splintered are far less likely. So much of it comes down to how you brief someone with the information and the empathy that you put into it, as well as the sense of them being a partner to you, not just a supplier. So much of it is attitude, and then having those conversations, not waiting for meetings to happen, but having those conversations in real time with people as they're having ideas or they're thinking of implementing something. That solves so many things in the process, but you have to make time for that. I am busy. I have lots of things going on every day in a myriad of ways in an agency, but I make my time for those moments because I know when I finally do see something, it's going to be 90% there or 95% there rather than 60% there.
Okay, thank you. Next question is for Kabelo. Kabza, living in such a rapidly changing society, how do you ensure that your edges are up to date and are actually based on real-time aspirations and influences?
We map the edges, right? So we actually track how they evolve. So that process actually goes by actually, for triggers or for conversations that are trending topics, they have a life cycle. So we evaluate constantly, like, is there still interest in that particular subject matter? Is there particular sort of a build up into it evolving to something different or fitting into a specific sort of edge map that we have already have in the glossary of terms, or it's taking up its own sort of conversation stream and evolving to something else. So we are constantly evaluating them, constantly enriching them with in terms of what the spotters do. They actually look for similar behavior, similar sort of trends, and then see if they're still relevant. And I think that is a constant sort of thing. And it continues to organically grow, continues to and once it becomes an edge, it doesn't necessarily fall off. I think it basically forms part of the glossary of terms, and we'll keep building on them.
Thanks, great answer. I'm going to build on that question with a question from Zaid, who asks, how do you separate the thin line between supporting culture and cultural appropriation? Have you guys ever had any issues with this with any of your clients?
Not really any issues, because in respect to culture, again, it's always like the statement I made, which is culture in, campaign out. So it's always from the starting point of culture. So it's always not diluting, not misappropriating it. It's always paying respect to the cultural sort of nuance or trigger that we're working with, rather than trying to like force feed it in something that it's not. It is not. So it's always true to what the integrity of the cultural trigger is.
We also don't work in islands. For us, we bounce ideas off each other a lot. And that helps you because different people have different opinions. And if you were at a risk of misrepresenting something in some way, that quickly gets spotted and you quickly move past it because we have such a collaborative environment where we have this open sharing philosophy.
Okay, thank you for that. Our next question from Sharon Duplessis. TV is not dead, it's having babies. There's been a significant shift over the last few years regarding this. The analytics seem to show us that YouTube outperforms TV. In your opinion, are these numbers accurate? And secondly, if you had to split a budget between the two, what would that budget split look like?
See, maybe 4 weeks ago, I would have had a different answer to what I'll have right now, and you got to look at the impact of what COVID-19 has had on the world. I had a video call with my mom for the first time ever in the last 2 weeks. How many people are in a similar position as me, where your parents and people that generally stayed away from digital technology in that regard, besides just sending WhatsApp messages and that, but actually making a video call, for example. And it's happened everywhere, all over the country to varying degrees. And you got to look at the power and the impact of that. So as data becomes cheaper and as more and more people have smart devices, that is going to be our key channel more than anything. Right now, yes, it is TV because TV, it's free. You don't have to pay for data to use it in a lot of ways, like from SABC and the free to air channels. So it has a massive role to play in our country still. And it is the channel that you use right now if you want to create mass awareness more than anything. Radio still has a lot of leverage in our country, especially in vernacular, especially in the community stations. So, you got to look at all the tools and all the media in your arsenal and make the split. And you can't just generally say that, oh, TV must have most of the budget and radio. It depends on what you're selling and it depends on your insights. So the more you can investigate and interrogate something, you might realize that a radio campaign in community stations is actually where you got to put most of your money, and then just do reinforcement messaging on TV and outdoor and on social, for example. It really depends on your problem. It has to be informed. You can't take a generic approach. But the power of digital, the access to data, mobile phones, COVID-19, putting people into a digital world that probably haven't been there before, or put people that have been in the digital world before into this world in deeper ways, is something that we are going to be seeing over the next few months on how that has actually impacted consumers and the way that they behave.
Brilliant. Thanks, Peter. The next question, possibly our last, and I want to ask this question because I think it'll be relevant to the many red and yellow students that I know are watching this today, although they are obviously studying this kind of stuff. But the question is this, and the question is, how exhilarating, gents. I'm interested in switching to copywriting and design at this point in my life. What do you think the key skills and characteristics would be for someone in your industry, and where's the best place for me to start? I have no formal background in this industry currently.
Yeah, I think the starting point is always, formally, like, are you a writer? Are you an art director? Are you a designer? And it doesn't stop there. There's as writing goes, there's writing for social, writing for website, writing for SEO and that kind of thing. So we're always adding on. I mean, from my background myself, specifically, if I have to speak about that, is from design to coding. You know what I mean? So and it's always about the adding on or the augmenting of making yourself digitally fit. But it does start from a core of ideas and storytelling. To be able to express a brand and connect with people. So you nurture that skill, and then add because the digital touchpoints are another channel in terms of how does that translate to those platforms. And I think it starts with harnessing your core skill, and then building onto that.
Thanks, Kabelo. I'm going to ask a follow-up question from that. It's from Alison Brennan, who's a third-year BA Viscom student. And I want to ask if you're hiring interns. And I think it's actually a very relevant question for right now, because, certainly from Red and Yellow side of things, at the end of the year, we're going to release hundreds of incredibly bright and talented minds into the workplace. I know they're going to be looking for workplace, can't think of the word now, when they come and visit your agency for a few weeks in the middle of the year, like they do every year with all the agencies. How do you guys see that happening? Are we going to try and do that remotely, or are we just going to let an entire year of incredible creative talent go without their practical experience? And then how do we move them into the workplace in this COVID world? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's going to be very challenging. Like a lot of companies are struggling. Some of them are retrenching, some of them are cutting salaries, etc. So it is an unprecedented time, but in unprecedented times, unprecedented things happen, and it calls for you to take on new shapes and new forms. So, people will find a way, because at the end of the day, there's very talented people out there, and especially if you have an attitude like we have as an agency, you want people in there that have diverse opinions that can add to the culture that you already have, in diverse ways. So yes, maybe it'll be more project work for us. Bringing in that new injection of interns is always important. We will be bringing in interns, like regardless, next year, at the end of the year. So there will be spaces for us. And I'm sure a lot of the agencies will have that. But in some aspects, some of the guys will probably have to be in a little bit more of a freelance capacity for those who don't get jobs. But the freelance industry, in the way that they interact with the industry, might also evolve in the way that they position themselves and how they're used. So I think you just got to keep your ear on the ground for the next few months in watching where the industry is going, and try have conversations with people that are in leadership positions in the industry. I can guarantee you, if you had to reach out to anyone and say you're an intern and you just want to come speak to them about the industry and the future, I'm telling you, almost every single creative leader or industry leader will make the time for you, whether it's a phone call or coming in for a cup of coffee, if we're allowed to do that by then. It will help you so much. So please do that. Reach out to whoever you can, including myself, Cabs, to do that, because it is going to be crazy. There's no given and there's no sure thing that's going to happen out of this, except that you got to know what's going on, and you got to find the opportunity in the challenge, wherever it may be.
I think that's really good advice. Often as a young person, students look at people like yourselves and have fear of reaching out. And it's certainly been my experience that there are very few senior agency or creative leaders in any industry who will reject an eager youngster looking to learn, even if it's just for a half an hour chat. And I think particularly while we're all sitting at home, those opportunities to get those half an hours are even greater. So I really encourage the students out there, pick up the phone, pop out an email. You'll be surprised at the assistance and often really long-term amazing mentorship that you can get. Just don't be afraid. We're going to have to wrap up with this team here quickly. Guys, thank you so much. It was amazing. We'll send you the comments later. People absolutely loved your presentation.